Hello everybody, I'm Alex Big Blue and welcome to my top 10 Spider-Man villains. So who are my top 10 favorite Spider-Man villains and in what order? Let's find out now. Number 10. Goblin. I really think Goblin is a really underrated character and one that should probably be used a lot more than he has been. Definitely in my opinion. I think he's a really cool character in general. He looks like a kind of version of the other Goblin characters, but like in a scary movie. I just think he's a really cool looking horror type character. And yeah, I just think he's really interesting. And he's certainly one of my favorite ones that is especially really underused. Number 9. The Shocker. So Shocker has always been really cool because I really like his costume a lot. His personality as a thief is really interesting. Kind of what you want from that type of character. And his powers where he blasts the electricity out of his hands, or out of his gloves, I guess you would say more accurately, those contraptions on there, is always really cool, and I've always really liked that. And I think he makes for a great villain that pops up anywhere against Spider-Man, or in general for that matter. But like I said, his unique costume and his powers have always been really cool, and I really like the character. Number 8. The Lizard. I've always thought the Lizard had a really cool origin, where Dr. Connors is trying to grow another arm back, where of course he's only got one arm. And in general, I thought that was really cool, and I've always liked the character a lot. He's a very physical and dangerous villain in general, especially for Spider-Man. And I've always really liked the character's look and just the way he's portrayed. Very animalistic-like. Once he turns into that, he kind of loses control. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, sort of. A very cool villain, I've always thought, though. I've really liked him a lot, and I always think he's really cool whenever he shows up in anything. Number 7. Sandman. Sandman is always really cool because I like his powers a lot. They're very interesting. He can get really large or small or anything he wants, basically. He shapeshifts in any kind of way he wants, like making his fist very giant, as he does pretty often. And the ability to just turn into sand in any kind of shape or form is really cool. He can also disguise himself or hide himself. And I also really like that his costume, or not his costume, but his clothes, also have to change into sand with him when he first does that. So he always has to wear the same clothes. That's kind of cool. I've always really thought that was interesting. And yeah, just overall as a character, I think he's really likable and very interesting as a villain. And I also liked him in Spider-Man 3. I know the movie itself had some issues, but I thought his portrayal of it from Thomas Hayden Church was really well done, and that really kind of started my liking of the character, I guess, because then I've read about him a lot in the comics since then, and I've always really liked him a lot, actually. So he's a really cool character. Number 6. Scorpion. Scorpion is one of the classic Spider-Man villains, in my opinion. I've always really liked him since I watched the 90s cartoon. And I have to say that his look is really cool with the tail. And I also like how it's used as a weapon and it shoots acid out. And, you know, he can use it to hit Spider-Man and all of this. I really think all of that really makes Scorpion a really great foe for Spider-Man because of the fighting aspects. And also just kind of, you know, he continues the bug type of theme as well. Just a really cool character. I've always really liked Scorpion a lot. And I always like it when he shows up in stories. Number 5. Hobgoblin. So Hobgoblin has always been really cool looking. I think the design of the character is awesome. It might be my favorite design of the goblins. I don't know, him and Green Goblin and Demogoblin's all pretty great, but I really love the orange cowl and then the red eyes and all of that. Just the way it really comes through as a very interesting looking villain. And I also think it's cool how he has similar stuff as Green Goblin, but it's a little bit different. You know, it's a little different color or different things like that. And I always think Hobgoblin seems fairly intelligent, and he's also fairly chaotic as well, though. And I know they have different people being him at different times, so that's kind of interesting as well. But overall, he's just a really cool character that I happen to like a lot. Number 4. Dr. Octopus. So Dr. Octopus is very cool and interesting because he is one of the few villains that doesn't look like somebody who's just super in shape. You know, he's kind of overweight and just looks like kind of a normal guy. I always thought that was pretty cool and really something unique about him. I also think it's very cool because it's threatening, because not only his four metal tentacles, which is very threatening physically, he's also very dangerous because he is a genius scientific guy as well. That's always been pretty cool. His mind is his weapon as well as his tentacles. So that's always been really cool. And I think he makes a great foe for Spider-Man in general for that reason. And also because he's also just one of the most classic ones that you think of when you think of Spider-Man. So that's got to count for something as well. Very cool. I've always really liked that character a lot. Number 3. The Green Goblin. So the Green Goblin might be the most classic and most iconic villain of Spider-Man, at least as a Spider-Man villain, I'd have to say. And he's one of the best ones for sure. He's probably one of the more evil ones as well, actually, so that's pretty interesting. He certainly has caused some of the most damage to Peter Parker in his life. Of course, the Gwen Stacy death coming to mind there. And yeah, from his pumpkin bombs, his glider, his mask, and overall just really interesting look, and very psychotic in his actions as Norman, as well as, of course, the Goblin. I just really think Green Goblin is a very interesting character and certainly a great villain. Number 2. Carnage. Carnage has always been the most psychotic and the most evil and just pure chaos villain for Spider-Man. And he's just in general super dangerous and completely unpredictable. So that makes him the most unique Spider-Man villain of them all, I would say. He doesn't really have any qualms about doing anything horrible at all. Completely violent. And his character's look really represents that well, I think, because he looks like he's made out of blood, basically. The way his symbiote looks. The red and black, of course. And yeah, just overall a really cool design of a character as well. The way he looks. His powers are, very similar to Venom's, but still different enough to where he's a lot more crazy, and that shows through in the way he attacks people and all that kind of stuff is really cool. And I think he definitely makes one of the most threatening overall villains to Spider-Man, and kind of like the exact opposite of Spider-Man. Like the complete evil to Spider-Man's goodness, more or less. So I think he really is good for that, and makes him one of my favorite Spider-Man villains for sure. Number 1. Venom. Of course, Venom, as you guys probably well know by now, is my favorite overall Marvel character. So it's no surprise that he is my favorite Spider-Man villain. I think he's just the perfect villain for Spider-Man. He is, of course, his dark mirror character, and he's a bigger, stronger version. He can't be sensed by Spider-Man's spider sense, which is, of course, crazy and crucial. It's one of the only characters ever to do that. And he's just overall very tough and imposing villain for Spider-Man. And he's also always been a really cool version for him, because the way their relationship is, because of where the symbiote was on Spider-Man, has always been really interesting too. But yeah, I like Venom even more as an anti-hero, or even as a hero, maybe even arguably lately. But I've always really loved him as a villain to Spider-Man as well. And of course, that's where I first saw him as anyways, on the cartoon in the 90s and also in the comics. So yeah, I really think Spider-Man has a great overall villain army to take on, and Venom is at the head of that, in my opinion, and the best foe to foil Spider-Man. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have a top 10 you would like to suggest, let me know and I'll try to get to it. I'm Alex Big Blue. I'll see you later.